Good evening. Welcome to the Jackson County State's Attorney Candidate Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Jackson County and hosted by the Carbondale Public Library. I'm Dorsey Prosser and will be the moderator this evening. The League is pleased to bring you this forum tonight to not only learn what distinguishes one candidate from the other, but also to create a better understanding of what the role of State's Attorney is. Thank you to the candidates for participating, and a big thank you to the library, whose technological resources and expertise have made this possible. So let me introduce the candidates to you. I guess you can give a little wave. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Carr and Mr. Joe Cervantes. The format for this evening is as follows. Candidates will have 2 minutes for opening statements. Following, we'll have approximately 7 questions. And at the end of the questions, we will have 1 minute for closing remarks. Each question will have 1 minute and 30 seconds response time. Candidates, note your timekeeper in the corner. She's going to hold up a card when there's 15 seconds left, and she'll hold up a stop sign when time is up, but no need to stop mid-sentence or mid-thought, but when you see the stop sign, if you will, conclude your remarks as quickly as possible. And I'll be happy to repeat any questions that you may have. Candidates, do you have any questions at this point? No? Okay. Well, we're going to proceed in alphabetical order. So Mr. Carr, please go first with your opening remarks.
I'm pleased to have this opportunity to talk with the audience about my candidacy for a 3rd term as your Jackson County State's Attorney, because it's important to live in the county where one is going to serve. I want to tell you a little bit about myself because it's important for you to understand the history and the challenges that our county faces. I've been in this county for 50 years. I married Nancy, and Nancy's a lifelong resident. Together, we raised 2 children, Tim and Katie. And while we were raising them, I served on a school board in Jackson County for almost 12 years. I was the chairman of the policy committee on that school board. And when I left, they elected me to the Hall of Fame. My ties with SIU are strong. I was the student body president as an undergraduate. I was president of the Alumni Association and president of the SIU Foundation Board since graduation. For my entire professional career, I've been a prosecutor. I started with Chuck Garnati as an assistant state's attorney in Williamson County and handled a variety of cases, including felonies. I moved and became an assistant state's attorney, the first assistant in Jackson County, in handling violent crimes. And for almost 3 decades, I handled the prosecutions for the United States Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Illinois. After that, for the past almost 8 years now, I've served as your state's attorney. A person trying to be elected and holding this job is going to have to make decisions that oftentimes may be criticized by people, including law enforcement. The state's attorney is a minister of justice, and in that regard, has to be sure that his decisions are not based upon politics, social media campaigns, or fear about what the public is going to say. A state's attorney has to know that he has the trust of the community, and the community has to trust him. I am the person with that trust. I am the person with that experience, and that is why I'm running.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes.
Thank you. My name is Joe Cervantes, and of course, I'm running for state's attorney here in Jackson County. I appreciate Mr. Carr's experience. There's no doubt that he has extraordinary experience as a prosecutor. But this election is not necessarily going to be about Mr. Carr and myself. It's going to be about our policies and the difference between our policies. Just a little bit about myself. I live in Carbondale. I have 2 amazing boys, 10 years old and 6 years old. I have a BA from SIU in criminal justice. And shortly after 9/11, I ended up going to the Marine Corps, where I served in the infantry, doing tours in Iraq in 2004, 2003, 2004, 2007, and 2008. Why is that relevant? Because I gained valuable leadership experience while I was there. I attended SIU Law School, and shortly after law school, just like Mr. Carr, I started off with Chuck Arnatti in the prosecutor's office in Williamson County, prosecuting everything from traffic court to Class X felonies. My life was profoundly changed as an attorney when I served as the juvenile prosecutor in Saline County. After I did that for a year, I believe that I can make a better impact on the community than just being an assistant state's attorney. A lot of that reason is because I came from a juvenile system myself when I was younger, and I saw flaws inherent in our criminal justice program. And so again, not about Mr. Carr, not about me, about our policies. And I hope to explain those policies and my point of view on how I think Jackson County could use a different type of experience over the next 4 years.
Thank you. All right, we're on to questions. There'll be a minute and a half for each question. The first question: what impact can or should the state's attorney's office have in addressing violent criminal activity in the county? Mr. Cervantes, you go first.
Thank you. Well, I think the most important thing we can do about violent crime is have consistent policies. We want to make sure that everyone knows the policies, meaning let's put a hand out and make sure that we have chiefs meetings on a regular basis, that we're involved in the community. We're involved in community-based organizations, and we're in constant contact with community leaders. It's important to know the dynamic of the communities that you serve, and having an opportunity to go door to door all through the county. There are so many differences between the small townships and cities in Jackson County. I think we also, in order to fight violent crime, I think we have to be data-driven. I think the state's attorney's office, as Beth said by a lot of new prosecutors around the country, is you can't fix what you can't measure. If we're not accurately keeping track of the data in our office, how do we fix it? How do we direct law enforcement? How do we work with community leaders if we don't know what we're doing ourselves? And you have to prosecute cases. We're not in a position as the state's attorney to pick and choose the easy cases or the ones that are able to be proven. Sometimes you don't have the easiest case. Sometimes you have to put it in front of the jury. And I think sometimes the victim and victims' families deserve that. And finally, we have to, most importantly, prevent future violence. I think the way we do that is by having a number of different juvenile programs and treatment courts for juveniles. Let's make sure that our kids and our children have programs to divert them from our criminal justice system before we have to deal with them as adults.
Thank you. Mr. Carr?
Thank you very much. I'm very interested in the data-driven analysis that you're talking about. My office was the first in Southern Illinois to implement an automated case management system so that we would have that data. And the data has shown that by focused prosecutions, which our office has done with policies, which you can read on my website at the State's Attorney's Office, we have managed to reduce the number of felony filings from 2012, almost 30% between 2012 and 2019. The numbers are real. When I came there were, in 2012, there were there were 735 felony filings. By the end of 2019, there were 535 felony filings. Now, we have been able to accomplish that by focusing on the most serious offenders. And I agree with you 100% that we need to be able to try the cases. My office is full of trial lawyers. We try cases and we focus on the most serious cases. We've been able to remove over 400 people from Jackson County through sentencing, the most serious offenders in the time that I've been here. And we've used the most serious offense, we've defined the most serious offenses as those that have mandatory minimum sentences. So to the extent that we can have an impact on violent crime, it is through the prosecutions. We have the experience. You've mentioned that you've worked in Williamson County. You've never tried a murder case. I have 5 of them pending on my desk right now. This is not a figurehead position. This is an action position, and everybody in my office has to have the experience to try those cases.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What options does a state's attorney have when charging individuals under the age of 18? What approaches do you recommend when dealing with juveniles? Mr. Carr.
Okay, one of the things that we have the luxury of is we have a person in our office that has over 20 years of experience in handling a juvenile docket. And the 8 years that I've been here, the judge that presides over the juvenile docket has been the presiding judge for most of those years. We've now had 2 different presiding judges, but it helps to have people that are very experienced and have systems that are very adept and knowledgeable about services that are available for juveniles. In the 8 years that I've been here, we have not referred or had any juveniles that have actually been referred to adult court. In the rare instance where that may occur, those would be people that have juveniles that have already been subjected or have the experience of using the resources of our juvenile justice system. They may have been on probation and had those resources or had mental health counseling, and they have continued to offend and be involved in offenses that are very serious. To my knowledge, just so everybody understands this, the decision is not the state's attorneys alone about whether somebody becomes subject to a criminal prosecution. That has to be approved by the judge. So it's initiated by the state's attorney in making the recommendation. Because of our strong juvenile system and our strong advocacy support system, we feel real strongly that in most instances, juveniles should not be tried as adults.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes?
Thank you. So I've always said that the juvenile docket's the most important docket in the courthouse. A lot of people profile these murder cases. A lot of those are no-brainers. I mean, someone hurts somebody, we're going to try to put them away and keep them away from the community. The important thing is to make sure the boat doesn't keep filling up with water. You have to fix the leak, not just bail water. And that's why it's important to focus on the juvenile docket. Sometimes experience hurts. And now that sounds funny, but if you have someone that's been doing it for 20 years, sometimes it's nice to have a fresh perspective. Right now, if you go to government website, Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency, they have a department of programs. There's over 364 different programs, many of them juvenile programs, for the government to help counties, state level, federal level offices to make sure that we're diverting juveniles. Look, what we're talking about is transferring juveniles to adult court. And like Mr. Carr said, it's done very seldomly. The laws changed recently on that, and we typically only do it in the worst of situations. But we want to make sure that, and like he said, when we do it, it's usually a hearing. It has to be a hearing, and the judge determines that based on factors. But it's clear, case law is clear that we have to treat juveniles different than adults. I just got done doing what's called a Miller hearing, where juveniles are being resentenced because at the time that they were sentenced, we were treating them like adults and not considering juvenile or youth characteristics.
Thank you. The next question. It is said by some that the justice system is racist. What is your view of this premise, and how would your view affect your job as state's attorney? Mr. Cervantes.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think it's an important one. I think that what we're talking about a lot of times is what I call a racist, outcome or bias. We also call it desperate impact, where maybe it's not a racist intention, but the action itself has a racist impact or has social injustice or economic injustice written all over it at the end of the day. I sat in traffic court one time long ago, and I watched people come up one at a time, and a prosecutor offered them that if they could pay the fine today, that they could have supervision and have it taken off their record. Most people just went along with it and thought that it was equal, that the same fine was given to everyone. I'm there thinking, well, not everybody can pay that fine today. And so I am highlighted and underlining something called economic injustice, where initially it looks fair, but the outcome is extremely racially biased. Not everybody can afford that, and it has a negative impact on certain communities. Now, that's just one example in the system. The other one is plea bargaining. You're more likely to plea bargain if you're incarcerated, and it's clear that ones that cannot afford to get out often tend to be from communities of poverty and communities that are socially and economically challenged. More likely to plea bargain, more likely to have a poor driving record, more likely to have a criminal history at the age of 18. What is that saying about our system when we're setting juveniles up for failure as soon as they turn 18? So it is present, and the first step is to be cognizant of it and be aware of it and not ignore it.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Carr,
I don't think there's any question, but
would you like me to repeat the question?
you can. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. It is said by some that the justice system is racist. What is your view of this premise, and how would your view affect your job as state's attorney?
Well, I think that that it's unfortunate that we have racism that is part of our society, and it's even more unfortunate that some people don't realize that whether it's intentional or unintentional, that it still exists. It's very difficult to put yourself in a situation that you've never been in, and you're to try to relate to somebody that's trying to run through a neighborhood and maybe even look at new construction. I do that on vacation all the time, and then to have two people on a pickup truck, chase you down. I mean, that's something that we don't have to experience. I can go out and walk my dog in the evening and not worry about having somebody think, well, what are you doing in my neighborhood? And so how does that affect what we do as state's attorneys? And I take it that's really what you're going, how can we take that out of our system? And I think that the important answer is, number one, we need to screen cases. And that may seem like just a simple suggestion, but I will tell you, in the 20 years, and I've been a federal prosecutor and watched in the 38 counties in Southern Illinois, a lot of prosecutors just rubber stamp the initial charge that comes in from the police officer and let people sit in jail for 5 or 6 months before they even review the case, only to determine that there isn't sufficient evidence to support that prosecution. We need to make the decision early on to look at those cases, to unarrest those people that are arrested based upon probable cause, and that's the standard for police. We need to unarrest people when we cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt, or feel we can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that there's evidence to support that conviction.
Thank you. And the next question, please describe your view of best practices in the relationship between the state's attorney's office and the police. As sort of a secondary question, how would the use of body cameras impact your job? Mr. Carr.
Well, I think best practices starts with, you have to have the reputation that they trust. They have to know that you know what you're doing. I've handled over 100 jury trials to completion. I've been involved in grand jury investigations for over 3 decades. Walking in and talking to a police department about things that I see, I think has a profound impact, especially if I'm talking about seeing something that from a standpoint of probable cause may be justified in terms of making an arrest, but can't be supported ultimately in keeping those people arrested and convicting them. So there's a big difference. And I'll make an example. The car is stopped and there's a gun under the seat and there's 3 people in the car. There's probable cause to arrest people in the car, but we don't know whose gun it is. And so if a prosecutor's office does not have a relationship with the police department to explain to them, we need additional evidence. We need to prove who that gun belongs to. And they need to trust the prosecutor and trust his experience to be able to have a kind of a relationship where we can work together. That relationship also is expanded by cooperating with grand jury investigations. I think the police department can learn a lot from prosecutors that regularly handle grand jury investigations, and they've done that here.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes.
Thank you. I'm proud of my relationship with law enforcement, and I can't tell you how important it is to have that relationship. Carr mentioned that we can't rubber stamp things either. The State's Attorney's Office needs to act as an independent investigator to these police reports, but at the same time, it's so important to not just know officers' badge numbers. You got to know their phone numbers too. You got to know their first names and their last names. And that means ride-alongs. That means to be in the department. That means to understand what they go through on a regular basis. In fact, one of the reasons why I'm running is because of my work with law enforcement and the respect that I have for the work they do. At the same time, I can say this, that they appreciate that I've told individual officers that as the state's attorney, I expect to hold them to a high standard, push them and challenge them, and I expect them to do the same thing for me. That's how the relationship should be, that we stand shoulder to shoulder, elbows locked, but at the same time, we're accountable to each other and we force each other to be better people and better at what we do. Body cameras, I approve of them. A lot of officers like them. At first, it was burdensome for them to have them. But I think one of the things they do is it helps the community in that when officers announce they have body cameras, it acts as a de-escalation tool. As a prosecutor, I'm not just after sentences and wins and losses. I'm after the truth. And if body cameras allow me as a prosecutor to seek the truth and find the truth, then I absolutely support them. Also, it's a safety issue for officers. So I support them and I'm proud and I can't wait to be able to work with law enforcement in Jackson County.
Thank you. What should be considered in decisions made by the state's attorney and the lawyers that he supervises as to which crimes are prosecuted and how? Mr. Cervantes.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. What are considerations in making the decisions that you as state's attorney and your staff lawyers, what is considered, what should be considered when you decide which crimes should be prosecuted and how?
Thank you. Well, I think that community safety is first and foremost. But unlike the old school prosecutor mentality, sometimes that doesn't mean that we're incarcerating all the time. It's true that there's treatment courts now all across the country. In fact, probably over 3,000 in jurisdictions all across the United States. I think it's important to be tough on violent crime and to prosecute. Sometimes you don't have the best cases, but you have to make sure that all of our prosecutors are consistent and that they understand the policies and my intent to make the community safer. At the same time, low-level offenses, misdemeanors, and so on and so forth, we can't allow them, defendants, to continuously come in and out of this revolving door. That's why with lower-level offenses, we have to be smart on crime, not just tough. So it's a matter of what's best for the community, and of course, always trying to seek justice. This is not a game of wins and losses to only try the most perfect cases. This is not a federal attorney's office. This is a state's attorney's office in a small community that needs attention and it needs detail and it has to be curtailed to the needs of the community. So I think it's necessary to make sure that we have a consistent policy across the board, and whatever we're prosecuting, we're doing so with the safety of the community first and foremost. And I think that's the way you make sure that you trust your assistant state's attorneys, but you verify what they're doing.
Thank you. And Mr. Carr.
I agree with most of what my opponent has just said. In my office is one of the few offices in all of Southern Illinois that actually has a prosecution policy. You can read about it on my website. The prosecution policy is very similar to the Justice Department policy, and it requires in crimes that of violence that the highest readily provable offense be charged. Just as we try to do that, we also are fully aware that I'm not trying to make everybody in Jackson County a felon. I told everybody in our office that. We want people to be productive members of our community. We want people to be able to go to work without the stigma of conviction. And regardless of what Mr. Cervantes is suggesting about prosecutors wanting everybody to go to prison, Judges are the people that sentence. Prosecutors don't. We can make recommendations. Jackson County has a reputation for fundamental fairness. People that should not be going to prison because of minor offenses. We are handling those cases and moving them on as quickly as we can through some kind of counseling program or supervision program through probation, or even a conditional discharge. For those more serious offenses, we have to have the lumber to be able to not only charge them, but to convict them. And we've done a good job. I'll say again, it is not a disadvantage to have trial experience, which Mr. Cervantes does not have.
Thank you. The next question is, how can the state's attorney's office improve interactions with citizens who've been arrested who might be challenged with mental illness, addiction, or homelessness? Mr. Carr, you are to answer first. I'm going to pause a minute. We're getting a few messages that's a little difficult to hear you, so maybe being a little closer or any accommodation you could make. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I've actually seen that and I apologize. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Okay, sure. Okay. How can the state's attorney's office improve interactions with citizens who've been arrested who may be challenged by mental illness, addictions, homelessness, or similar challenges?
This is one of the most difficult areas for prosecutors to handle. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a mental health counselor, and certainly we aren't hiring those people in our offices. But we do have a contract with Centerstone in Jackson County to intercede when we engage somebody that's obviously has a problem, a mental health problem. And that basically starts for us at the first time that we see them, and that usually is in court. It's before they actually get to court. The interactions with the police department that really that intervention has to occur. And we've made arrangements with Centerstone to come out, do evaluations, see if the person actually is a mental health issue, and to try to work towards some kind of a voluntary commitment or some kind of a treatment program. For veterans or people with insurance, it's easy in terms of the resources that are available to be able to accomplish this. The problem is that we have a lot of people that do not have those resources, and it's just extremely difficult to find a way to handle those cases. For the most part, those are not handled as regular cases in our office. If we can dismiss those cases so that they can get into some kind of a treatment facility, we regularly do that. And I think that's pretty much a failing across the board in the state for not providing significant mental health resources.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes? We can't hear you.
I just want to clarify on that last question, respond to Mr. Carr. In 2018, 96% of cases in Illinois were decided by plea bargaining. And so I think it's a little misleading to explain that judges sentence. That's their job. But a lot of times they're removed from our due process because prosecutors are acting a lot of times as judge and jury. And so most of the time it is the plea bargains and the state's attorneys and assistant state's attorneys that are setting those sentences. As to the question about identifying mental health issues and poverty issues and substance abuse issues, it's clear that we have a problem in the system. And this is when experience works against you. This is why 3 decades of the status quo is dangerous to moving forward in the criminal justice system and into reform. One thing is clear. It's absolutely necessary for prompt identification of underlying issues, without a doubt. And a lot of times police reports tend not to include the underlying issues. A lot of times this is why it's important that I was a prosecutor, but that I'm also a defense attorney, because it's so frustrating to walk into court and have somebody who you've had their parents in your office explaining how they were fine until they were 26, until they started getting hooked on drugs. And now all of a sudden I have to go through this long process to try to get an evaluation done. And most of the time, it's not required, and I can't get a drug evaluation or substance abuse evaluation until later on in the process. We're failing people by not identifying these problems as soon as they're arrested. That's one of the things that has to change immediately, not just in Jackson County, but all across this country with our criminal justice system.
Thank you. All right, here's your chance to bring up something that you think maybe the public needs to know more about. You're going to be able to choose. Here's the question. In what area or areas do you think the public needs additional knowledge and understanding about the role of the state's attorney? Mr. Cervantes.
All across this country right now, state's attorneys are being challenged by public defenders, former public defenders and private defense attorneys, because when we talk about criminal justice reform, what we're usually talking about is the interaction between police officers and the community, or judges in mandatory minimum sentences. What we need to be talking about is who's your state's attorney, and whether they're holding on to power to do it and prosecuting in a punitive way, or if they're trying to be a problem solver. If you're in office for a decade almost, or the same system for 3 decades almost, and there's no treatment courts available, what's the excuse? Why not move forward? Why not try things that are going to help the community? Jackson County is perhaps the most diverse county in Southern Illinois, and yet we're not turning our eye towards substance abuse, towards pushing people back into the community, rehabilitating them, saving money from incarceration, giving people an opportunity to not be convicts, but instead to be correctional officers, giving them an opportunity to be firemen and not felons. It's important to try new things. The Department of Justice, the very same department that my opponents work for, has programs that they suggest and they endorse. On the very homepage of that Department of Justice, it explains the success of drug courts and the stories of people who have had success from those drug courts all across the country. It's time for change. And I think people should be aware that there's a better way to do things. So it's a better, the community is safer in the long run, not just temporarily with press releases on incarceration.
Thank you. Mr. Carr.
My opponent doesn't know what he's talking about. The public wants to be safe. Jackson County wants to be safe. And I want you to know there are judges and resources in Jackson County that are second to none in Southern Illinois. We have the resources. We're not sending everybody to jail. I'm saying we, the judges. The prosecutor doesn't have a judge in the bag that can get the prosecutor to do whatever they want. That's an absurdity. The judge listens to a defense attorney and listens to a prosecutor, listens to alternatives that are available, and to the willingness of somebody that's been convicted to comply with them, or the ability to comply with those, and makes those determinations about the safety of the community. So the idea that you're trying to push on the public that somehow this is some antiquated cowboy show that the prosecutors are running, and that the judges are just unwitting participants in it is bizarre. Prosecutors and defense attorneys are good students of what judges do. When we enter into negotiations, we have a real good idea of what a judge is likely to do in the event that there's a trial, as opposed to what a judge is likely to do in the events of acceptance of responsibility. To suggest that the criminal justice system in Jackson County is somehow distorted and different from what the norm should be is a bizarre misstatement. You have no idea of just how good the process is in Jackson County to weed out people that do not belong in the prison system.
Thank you. I think we will move on now to our concluding remarks. And you have 1 minute. Mr. Carr, you go first.
Okay. I want to talk first a little bit about the comment that my opponent has indicated he's from Carbondale. It's my understanding that Carbondale is also in Williamson County, and I'll leave a portion of my time for you to identify whether or not you live in Jackson County, and whether or not you're registered to vote in Jackson County, and whether or not your kids go to school in Jackson County. I'd also leave a portion of my time for you to talk about just exactly how many grand jury investigations you've conducted, just exactly how many murder trials you've conducted, and just on what basis you think that you can supervise people that have handled 20 or 30 jury trials that are in that office right now. I respectfully submit that I appreciate your willingness to run as a state's attorney and to be involved with the community, but starting as a state's attorney is a far cry from what you or this community is entitled to. I've lived here. I need somebody that is willing and has the experience in the most serious of cases to have the experience to be able to handle those, and at the same time have the care and judgment to know the difference between what does not need to be a trial and what can be moved along. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cervantes, your concluding remarks.
I'm going to take the bait and change my closing remarks to let Mr. Carr know that what he just said is called privilege. I lived here. I'm from here, and therefore I'm better qualified. In '96, I came down here and I never left because this county opened its arms to me. I want to talk about how I'm attached with Carbondale. I sat on the porch steps of the recruiting office in 1997 and joined the Marines right from downtown Carbondale. Went to SIU, went to SIU Law School. My last haircut when I had hair was at the Murdale Barbershop before I left for boot camp. My last meal was at Mary Lou's. So to say that I'm detached from the community is a far cry, and all I hear there is privilege. This is about policy, not about where you're from. And I care about this community greatly, and I'll continue to care about this community as the next state's attorney in Jackson County.
Thank you. If this were a live or an in-person event, we would be giving you a large applause at this point. And so I do want to thank Mr. Cervantes and Mr. Carr for agreeing to come tonight. This is the very first virtual candidate forum by the League of Women Voters of Jackson County. So thank you for participating in our experiment here. But before we sign off, I have to have a few words about voting. The League wants to ensure that all voters understand their 3 options for voting in the upcoming election. Your first option is to vote by mail. You certainly have heard a lot about it, but of course, to vote by mail, you need to apply to receive your ballot by mail, and you apply to the county clerk, to the Jackson County Clerk. If you do want to participate in voting by mail, get that application right now. The ballots will be mailed out at the end of September and in October. If you do vote by mail, it's very important to remember to avoid mail delays and put that mailed ballot in by October 19th. Unfortunately, 19 has become a big number, so people that may want to vote remotely because of COVID-19, vote by mail by October 19th. Okay, first option. Second option, there's early voting. You know, if you do change your mind and you get that ballot and you say, I think I want to go in person, just be sure to keep track of that ballot. Don't destroy it. Take it to the in-person voting places. If you're going to go vote early, you can vote at the courthouse at the county clerk, SIU Student Center, or you can go to the Carbondale Civic Center. But take that ballot with you if you've received one. The dates and times of that are on the county clerk's website. And I hope you'll also check out the League of Women Voters of Jackson County website, where you can find out those dates and a lot of other voting information. Finally, your third option is to go to your regular precinct polling place on November 3rd. So consider your options and vote. The League's goal has been and always will be to inform voters. We thank our partners in information, the Carbondale Public Library, particularly Jennifer Robertson and Diana Brawley-Sussman. Thank you for coming tonight, but stay tuned. Shortly, we will begin our candidate forum for the Jackson County Circuit Clerk. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Are we off? Jennifer?
No, we are still on. So I thought we were just continuing.
Okay. I thought maybe we were starting at 7:15. Should we proceed? I'll be starting all over in my remarks. So go ahead and go now.
I'm going to get off real quick, but I want to thank you for doing that. And then Mr. Carr, I appreciate it. Good luck to you. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Same to you.
All right. All right, so we're moving on. Okay. Well, welcome to the League of Women Voters' second candidate forum for this evening. This evening, now we will move on to the Jackson County Circuit Clerk candidate forum. The League is pleased to present this forum so that you can hopefully learn not only how to distinguish between the candidates, but also learn a little bit more about what the Circuit Clerk does. I want to thank our candidates for coming tonight. And again, another big thank you to the Carbondale Public Library for sponsoring that or putting this on, hosting this for us. So I will introduce the candidates this evening. Miss Cindy Sfonda and Jessica. Hi, good evening. And Jessica Bradshaw.
Hi.
Hi, good evening. All right, again, I'll review the rules real quickly. You're going to have 2 minutes for opening statements. Then you'll have questions that will be allowed for 1.5 minutes. And we'll alternate between candidates as to who goes first. And following the questions, you will have 1 minute for closing remarks. So again, keep your eye, candidates, on the timekeeper, 15 seconds, and then the stop. But again, you can complete your thoughts, complete your sentences. No reason to stop mid-sentence. Do you have any question, candidates? If not, all right, we'll go ahead and go first. And we will go again by, so Ms. Bradshaw, your opening remarks, please.
All right. Good evening and welcome. My name's Jessica Bradshaw. Can you hear me okay? Let me start since we did a test earlier. I just want to make sure I'm still good. Okay. I currently work full-time at SIU as an office administrator in the School of Electrical, Computer, and Biomedical Engineering. I've also been serving on the Carbondale City Council since 2013. I'm also expecting to graduate in May with a master's degree in public administration from SIU. In many ways, this is the perfect trifecta for this elected position, the Circuit Clerk of Jackson County. In addition, my first job was helping my father, Rich Whitney, in his law office. While I may not have direct legal experience since then, I believe that having a fresh pair of eyes can be good for any office. I've taken on that responsibility before at SIU, updating practices, systems, and services in the offices I've worked at. I have spent the last 12 years working at SIU, and now I'm ready for a new challenge. I realize that this may sound more like a job interview pitch than a political spiel, and it is, because unlike some other offices, the Circuit Clerk's office really is more of an administrative job than a political one. But instead of just one hiring manager, we have to appeal to you, the voters. I've been involved in job searches and hiring at SIU and have witnessed firsthand how some have gone wrong and how some have gone very well. I hope to show you this evening that I would be a good fit for this position with the right skill set, a good grasp of what is required, and the right attitude for providing this vital public service. I hope to show you tonight and in the next 4 years, if you let me, what I can do right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sfonda?
Good evening. For the last 24 years, I have been your circuit clerk. I want to thank the League and the Carbondale Public Library for sponsoring this forum. My husband Rick and I have been married for 46 years. We built our home in Ava, where we raised our children. We have also been blessed with 2 grandchildren. In my spare time, I coordinate a weekend youth retreat, and I am one of the directors of a Christian leadership camp. I have been involved with both since 1992. I am currently the incumbent circuit clerk, and I will continue with projects I have already started, such as scanning old files and moving towards a paperless courtroom. I have always been an advocate for the self-represented litigant. Since elected, I have worked with Landa Lincoln, the SIU School of Law, the SIU Self-Help Center, and the Illinois Legal Aid Online to make information and forms available at no cost. I have set up computers, printers, and scanners in our lobby to help the self-represented litigants e-file. I proudly served as president of my association, and I have been on the legislative committee since 1999. I served on the Supreme Court Access to Justice Committee. I was on the Illinois Association of County Officials Executive and Education Committee, and I was a member of the Governor's Child Support State Disbursement Advisory Committee. Thank you, and I look forward to continuing to serve the people of Jackson County.
Thank you. Okay, on to the questions. In your view, what are the prime responsibilities of the circuit clerk? Ms. Svanda.
According to the manual on record keeping, the circuit clerk's duties are to be the keeper of the court record. Along with that, the circuit clerk is to oversee the collection and distribution of various agencies of fine money, to make sure the courtrooms are clerked, and to do quarterly and annual reporting. Beginning in fiscal year 1999, the circuit clerks were required by Public Act to annually submit to an independent audit. I can proudly say that I have never had a material finding, including fiscal year ending 2019. You must also oversee the running of your staff and the office. You must relate well to the public. They don't tell you this, but you need to have an understanding of bookkeeping and how to balance money.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bradshaw?
I believe first and foremost that the primary duty of any public official is to serve the public, which is why I'm studying for my master's in public administration, or my MPA. If you're asking about the specific job duties, Ms. Vanda just outlined some of them, and they're stipulated by Illinois law. The circuit clerk in Jackson County must also follow the local rules adopted by the First Judicial Circuit Court and the instructions of the judges, including current presiding judge, Christy Salverson. I'll kind of skip through some of these because she went over, maintaining records, collecting fines, preserving paperwork since a lot of it is online now, and records of all cases, whether they're civil, criminal, or estate matters, and overseeing the staff of deputy clerks and others who keep the office running day in and day out. It is a list of complex duties that balances public record keeping and access to the courts with the need for confidentiality when it exists. That's something that I've also had experience with at SIU, as well as with my work on the city council. It is a huge job requiring great attention to detail, and that brings me to the other important aspect of the job. The circuit clerk has to be a capable office manager, human resources manager, and accountant, participating in the budget process and tracking the budget, which is just over $1 million.
Thank you. Great. The next questions is, what qualifications and skills are important to being an effective circuit clerk? Ms. Bradshaw.
Keep muting myself and unmuting myself. Because this is an elected office, there isn't a job prescription per se, but I'd say that office experience and public service experience are important. Being an effective circuit clerk has a lot to do with leadership and management skills, as well as the official training. Being able to balance duties and multitask, as well as knowing when to delegate work, are key to keeping the court's records accurate. The circuit clerk's office is a busy place with a lot of people and processes happening simultaneously. Having good people skills, good communication, both written and oral, and good computer skills are a must. Throughout my career, I've managed databases and I pick up on new technology relatively quickly. I could list a lot of different software and things that I use at SAU, but that would get boring pretty quickly. As the official record keeper of the circuit clerk, accuracy in reporting is also important. And I have excellent writing and editing skills, that attention to detail. While no college education is required to hold the office, the critical thinking skills that I've learned in both my undergrad studies and currently in my MPA program will help in the day-to-day operations. And of course, it should go without saying, but a dedication to public service is also essential, and my years on the city council show that.
Okay, thank you. All right, third question. What qualification and skills will you consider when hiring employees to work in the office of the circuit clerk?
Okay, so we switched questions. Dorsey, did you switch questions?
I had some license to do the questions.
Oh, no, okay, that's fine. No, I just wanted to make sure. Is
Yeah.
this one?
This is
Okay.
my question.
So what qualifications to be an employee?
Right, and I think Ms. Bradshaw will
Okay.
go first. Qualifications and skills that you would consider when hiring employees to work for you in the office of the circuit clerk. What kind of people, what do you require that they have? What are you looking for? Ms. Bradshaw.
I go first? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, similarly with the circuit clerk, people who work in the office of the circuit clerk should have some office or legal experience, as well as experience serving the public. Some higher education could be substituted for experience or vice versa, but it's important to have a diverse staff who have good communication skills, detail-oriented, technologically competent, and are dedicated to serving the people of Jackson County. Making the best and most efficient use of the taxpayers' money must be a priority for the entire staff.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bradshaw. Okay, Ms. Fonda?
You must be able to work with the public. You must be patient. You must be able to work with money. You must be able to type and have basic computer skills. You must be able to take direction from supervisors and work with others. You must be able to work in close quarters with the other employees in the office. You must be a team player. You must be able to pitch in and help even when the job isn't yours.
Thank you, and I sincerely apologize that I got mixed up. Thank you, Ms. Fonda. I did not mean to keep you from answering the previous question. Thank you for correcting me. So again, we're going to go back to Ms. Fonda about the qualifications and skills that are important for you for the office of circuit clerk. I apologize.
That's okay. So we're back to what qualifications and skills are important to be an effective circuit clerk.
Right.
Okay. You must relate well with people. One of the things that I tell people when I hire them, I hold up a file folder and I ask them what it is. And they look at me and they say, well, it's a file folder. And I tell them, no, it isn't. It's a person. And that file folder and the people that come into that office, they're to be treated with respect. They're not to take the things that happen in that office home. You must have a clear understanding of the different case types, what they are, what they mean. You must have a knowledge of bookkeeping. This office is the collector of the fines and the fees. You have to have knowledge of the legal world. I worked for 16 years in an attorney's office before I became circuit clerk. You must be able to administer staff. You must know technology because now this office is totally technology driven. When I first took office, all we had were green screens and typewriters. There wasn't even a fax machine in there. So I have totally brought this office to what it is now: computers, e-filing, sending notices out by email. So every technology that's in that office today, I have brought forward.
Thank you. So hopefully I'm back on track now, and Ms. Bradshaw will go first for the next question. All right, I'll pay better attention. Okay, what are your plans and goals for the next 4 years if elected? Ms. Bradshaw?
Yeah, I think the most important goal is to continue to put in a full work week, to be present for the staff and the courts we serve, and to create an atmosphere where the whole office will do a job well. The day-to-day job duties must get done as efficiently and effectively as possible, because while this is mostly an administrative job, my salary is paid by you, the taxpayers. The most immediate concern is continuing to serve the public safety during this pandemic. I know we're all tired of thinking about it, talking about it, but here we are on Zoom in a forum. One part of that is the ability of the court system to conduct jury trials, and the ability of the media and the general public to observe court proceedings while also staying safe. We need to stay on top of the best available video and audio conferencing technologies and the best practices to help us solve these problems. More generally, computer systems and websites can become outdated so rapidly. I would lead an assessment of the technology used by the office and develop a plan for fixing, updating, and replacing systems on a regular basis. I tend to pick up on new technology quickly, so I will implement new changes as needed to streamline processes in the office. In short, my plans are to accurately, thoroughly, efficiently, and effectively work full-time to deliver the services that our court system and the public demand.
Thank you. Ms. Fonda?
Well, first of all, my office is probably the most technology forward office in downstate Illinois. Everything in the office is as technology advanced as can be. We totally keep up with the latest technology that's out there. So, you know, that is pretty much a moot point. The courtrooms, we have the most up-to-date advanced technology in our courtrooms to do jury trials, present evidence, you know, for that is out there. So we're pretty techy, Jessica. The things that I would like to accomplish in the next 4 years is to just keep abreast of all the new technology and to just keep moving forward with our paperless courtrooms and to make the office as paperless as we can. This not only saves money, it also saves our planet's resources.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Please list and describe the sources of revenue for the circuit clerk's operations and how they impact services. Ms. Fonda?
The revenue sources for the circuit clerk's office are set out by statute. These revenue sources were affected when the state of Illinois enacted the Criminal Traffic and Assessment Act. It went into effect on July 1st, 2019. The CTAA affected the revenue stream of every county, city, and state office that relied on the fines and fees to help fund the clerk's office, from the clerk's fees, the court system, the county, the sheriff, the state's attorney, the public defender, probation, the municipalities, and the state of Illinois. The act allows for the waiver of criminal fees ordered in a case based on income. The clerk's fees that were typically paid in cases are now being waived. along with all the other fees that run the office. Due to the CTAA and COVID-19, this will be the first year that the clerk's office will not generate almost enough revenue in clerk's fees to cover the cost of the operation of this office.
Thank you. Ms. Bradshaw?
Per my research, most of the revenues for the circuit clerk come from property taxes, which, since property taxes are the single largest source of revenue for Jackson County, and the state and county share in the responsibility to finance the courts. But we all know how the state's budget has been doing lately. I jotted down the CTAA. That's very concerning. There's a lot of other fees, but some are tied to specific programs, so they can't be used for anything else, like the Violent Crime Victims Assistance Fund and the Trauma Center Fund. So just like with the city's budget, sometimes you get income from one stream, but it has to go to another stream. Although the circuit clerk's office will never be entirely self-financed, nor should it be, the efficient and successful collection and proper disbursement of the required fees, fines, and assessments is an important function of the circuit clerk's office. These fees pay for a variety of programs, including document storage, county law libraries, and other operations of the clerk's office, the state's attorney's offices, public defender's offices, the probation department, and the court system.
Okay, thank you. Okay. How could the circuit clerk's office be improved or made more efficient? Ms. Bradshaw?
I think that it's always good to have a fresh set of eyes look at something. As I said before, I've done that in a few offices at SIU, and it's just always good to get someone else's perspective on something. Miss Vanda has served since 1996, as she said, and the world has changed a lot since then. And I'm not saying, going paperless is great. The city council did that a few years ago, and thankfully they did, because it's helped us prepare for this pandemic. Systems that may have been cutting edge, though, have changed and may now be showing their age. I would complete an analysis of the technology systems in the office and highlight where the improvements can be made. I would also work with the existing court programs to increase legal access to the self-represented litigants, which she also mentioned. Currently in the First Circuit, the new Court Navigator Network is coordinated by Brenda Sprague, the administrative assistant to the chief judge. I would work closely with her to expand fair access to the courts to all residents in Jackson County. A lot of changes in the courts come from either the General Assembly or the Illinois Supreme Court. Sometimes additional funding comes with that, sometimes it doesn't. These things are beyond the control of the clerk, but we'd adapt as we could.
Thank you. So now please address any other concern or issue of the Office of Circuit Clerk that has not been covered tonight that you would like to speak on.
Hey,
Ms.
Dorsey,
Yeah,
you missed me again.
I'm so sorry.
That's
Yes,
okay.
Ms. Fonda, please speak. Thank you.
That's fine. We are operating right at the moment with half of our staff working 1 week in the office and half of our staff working remotely at home. This is an attempt to be proactive in case someone is infected with COVID-19. We would still be able to keep the office up and running. We have had a couple of scares by taking this proactive approach. We have been able to keep the doors open, the work covered, and the courtroom staffed, because even the ones that were quarantined at home were able to work remotely. I have cut my staff by 2. What would cause more efficiency would be able to fill those positions. We answer over 100 phone calls a day. But in order to be more efficient, we would have to spend more money on people, which the county just does not have. So we hope the public is patient with us, especially during these trying times. I want to point out that during the pandemic, unlike one of the other offices, we took the necessary safety measures and we had our doors open, serving the public on the days the courthouse was open and on the days the building was closed. We were in the office from 8 to 4, working every day, answering the phones, getting our day-to-day work done, processing the daily mail and child support payments, and getting caught up on the projects we had been putting off. We never shut down, and the taxpayers got their money's worth out of us, even during the pandemic.
Thank you. Okay, and now this question. Your opportunity to address any concern or issue of the circuit clerk's office that hasn't been covered tonight that you would like to speak about. Ms. Fonda?
Well, Ms. Bradshaw indicated that most of the budget comes from property taxes. That isn't true. The other thing that she indicated was she seems to think that she can come in and check to see what kind of software we use and maybe change it. We have software specific to our office that, you know, runs our judicial information management cases and some other things that I wouldn't necessarily call issues or concerns. But Jackson County offers the self-represented litigant a library full of forms and resources to aid them in their self-representation. I made a promise when I first ran in 1996 that I would do this, and I have. I've always made these resources available to the public at no cost. Jackson County also offers computers, printers, and scanners for the public to use. I work with Brenda Sprague on that committee that she's the head of. I offer Brenda whatever resources she needs. Before the pandemic hit, we were offering a pro se divorce class on Saturday mornings each quarter in the sheriff's conference room. This class was overseen by Judge Michael Fiello and was ran by volunteers from Land of Lincoln, the SIU School of Law, the circuit clerk's office. Everybody was a volunteer, and the classes were held at no cost to the taxpayer.
Thank you. Ms. Bradshaw?
Any good system should always be open to evolving and changing as needed. We're clearly seeing that now as courts adapt to meeting online. None of us could have predicted this future even 1 year ago. And the best and worst things about technology are the surprises that it brings. Building an office that is open is key, as well as being on top of the changes as they happen. I also wanted to talk about the judicial system and race, because you can't get away from it. Unfortunately, the problems with systemic racism begin way before they reach the circuit clerk's office. But a clerk can be proactive in preparing for changes that we hope to see in the world in the criminal justice system, such as a less punitive criminal justice system that has a greater focus on sentencing alternatives, restorative justice, lower use of punitive fines, and other changes. Being ready and willing to learn, problem solve, and adapt as I am is important in this era of radical change. I'm also a good listener and a naturally empathic person. And I mention this because, generally speaking, most people don't come to court because they're having a good day. For many, it's a painful and even traumatic experience. The circuit clerk's office must always keep that in mind and do its part to make the process as painless and fair as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now we come to the closing remarks, and we will start with you, Ms. Bradshaw.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and the Carbondale Public Library for providing this opportunity for us. And thank you to those of you who've tuned in and stayed tonight. If you elect me in November as your Jackson County Circuit Clerk, I will bring my experience in office management, service on the Carbondale City Council, and studies in public administration to this job. But more than that, I will bring my desire for change, my empathy, and my ambition to this full-time job. While I enjoy serving on the City Council, I want to expand my service to the people of Jackson County. And I believe, and I hope you agree, that I'm prepared and ready to serve you as Circuit Clerk. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Svanda.
In closing, since this pandemic has started, we have been hard at work utilizing both new and existing technology to move forward in this new reality. Our role is to continue to provide service to the public and to the attorneys that utilize the services of the Circuit Clerk's office. As they say, justice never sleeps. Even during the pandemic, our doors have remained open and the Circuit Clerk staff was available for all matters. It was our job to stay safe, but find a way to continue to do our job for the people of Jackson County. We work closely with the sheriff, our presiding judge, and the Jackson County Health Department guidelines to make our workplace safe. In my many years in office, this last year has been some of the most trying in navigating in this new normal. It has been my privilege to serve the people of Jackson County, and I ask for your support and vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we would all give the candidates a virtual applause. And I do thank both of you for being willing to participate in this online forum. As I conclude, I can't help but again encourage voters to learn your three options: vote by mail, vote early, vote at the polls. Just know your options. If you have questions, call the county clerk, or even better, visit the League of Women Voters of Jackson County website. We've got frequently asked questions about voting there. We've got some information about an upcoming proposed amendment that will be on the ballot. It's a proposed amendment to the Illinois Constitution. Hopefully you'll soon receive your pamphlet from the Secretary of State. Give you some pros and cons about this proposed amendment. Again, thank you to the library. Thank you to all my colleagues with the League. And thank you for coming tonight and vote. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Hey,
Thanks.
Dorsey, tell Don hi.
Okay, will do.